Today, I'm joined by Dr. Daniel Yadegar, a physician who sits at the forefront of longevity medicine, cardiologist and chief medical officer at Atria, a triple board certified physician in internal medicine, cardiology, and anti-aging and regenerative medicine. Educated at Harvard University and Weill Cornell Medical College, his work centers on early risk detection and a more proactive integrative approach to long-term health, including metabolic health, lifestyle, and women's health. He is also the founder at WellBell and chief medical advisor at Happy Aging, two science-driven supplement companies focused on hair health and healthy aging, and is actively involved in the life sciences space through venture investing and advisory roles. Let's start simple,
Yes.
And I want to start by, this longevity has been everywhere now. So when we say longevity, what do we actually mean?
It's become such a big topic. It's become very commercialized, and the word has been used everywhere that we go. And typically longevity means increasing the number of years that you live. But one of the things that I think is really important is improving health span as well. So we want to decrease morbidity so that people are living longer, but with independence, good cognitive brain function, ability to do their activities of daily living, and to really, really be able to enjoy their lives.
But we can extend life, we can prevent, but I hear a lot of people saying, clinically, doctor, I am perfect, the results are perfect, but I feel that I have no energy in my body.
Right.
I don't have strength in my body. I don't have the vitality in my body. And this brings me back to when we define health span, when does actually health span start, where it actually finishes? Because you can be clinically perfect, but still
not vital.
Yeah.
No, I think vitality is so important. And we don't talk about a lot of these topics, like how's your sleep? How's your energy? How's your libido? How's your desire to want to connect with a community? These are really important topics. And, it's great to extend life. We all want that. That sounds wonderful. But we really want to enrich the years that we have as well. And so much of longevity medicine is to improve the health span and the quality of vital, being able to participate in exercise and be independent and have a good sex life and to sleep well and travel. These are all really important things.
So do you think we should be looking for another definition of health, like, for example, our ability to adapt to life? So disease doesn't necessarily define health. And maybe health is our ability to adapt to life, even if we have a problem, because we know, at molecular level, individual level, societal level, there's no risk-free well-being. So, and we don't know when a disease starts. We're only looking at the symptom. And when the symptom comes, then we say, well, this is the end of health span. Now let's deal with the problem. So maybe we should be looking for another definition of health, which is broader.
Yeah, I don't think health span is binary. It's not like you have it or you don't. But the idea is to have disease-free, chronic disease-free living for as long as possible. And then once you do get to the end of your life, a meaningful transition. In my opinion, you want to have as much health span as possible for as long as possible. And then when it's time to go quickly. That's, really what I think is ideal.
Or even die in well-being,
Yeah, die in well-being is also okay. Yeah.
So what are the biggest threats then to health and health span, you would say?
So overall, cardiovascular disease, cardiometabolic disease, I think cancer, especially, cancer is really, it's interesting, affecting younger patients, people getting diagnosed with colorectal cancer much earlier than they used to be. Neurodegenerative, so Alzheimer's, dementia, those are, the top three. So cardiovascular disease, early cancer protection, and then, dementia is also another one. And then ultimately, frailty, ultimate frailty, osteoporosis, muscle loss, inability to do your activities of daily living. That's another one.
Mm. And we see that obviously we have extended life, and this is good uh, because of good medicine,
Yeah.
surgery and all these kind of things. But we see the gap between what we call length of life and lifespan to what you define as health span is opening up.
Yes.
So health span, instead of actually start matching the lifespan, is opening up, which means, are we doing something wrong in medicine in terms of prevention?
Yeah, I think the model a lot of people would agree, and I know you and I, George, would agree is broken. In medical school, the whole premise of medical school is disease, disease, disease. So you learn about heart failure, you learn about lung cancer, you learn about pancreatic cancer, and you become experts in treating and being reactive once the disease is manifest. I think the secret sauce and what we're really learning is that prevention and being ahead of things is really where true health span and longevity comes from.
And talking on the subject of longevity, what do you think is the influence of environment we live in? Because, I'll give you, okay, medicine is good, but the truth of the matter is we live in an environment which is not friendly to our biology. And I can see this as a manifestation, let's say, children's obesity. They go to school, they learn about good nutrition, but when they go to the canteen to eat, it's all this sugary stuff. Or they go to school, and us as parents, even the school, we prioritize on academic excellence, and we've removed the recreational part, the physical activities away, which we know they're the pillars. So I think, do you believe that environment plays a very big influence?
100%. I mean, it's a full interaction of your genetics, your biology with the environment. We call that interface epigenetics. But if you think about it, we're not treating our planet very well. So there's a lot of aftermath of pollution in the water, in the land that affects our food supplies, can disrupt the microbiome. With the advent of Ubers and AI and drones, we're becoming a much more sedentary society. So people are not moving as much. And I think that's going to impact things. And even with ChatGPT, if ChatGPT is doing all the thinking for you when it comes to neuroplasticity and sort of problem solving using different parts of your brain, even the brain is going to become sedentary. So in some ways, both what's happening in the macro environment of the world, pollution, all those sort of things, as well as the impact of technology, there are going to be effects on health that we really need to think about.
Do you think people, when we talk about longevity, they have good knowledge of all these things you're just describing? And if they do, why they don't do it?
I think people are definitely curious about it. There's definitely interest in longevity. People want more agency away from the medical doctor, away from the office, to be able to impact their own longevity and health span. And people are sponges. They really want to know what is going to improve the length of my life and the context and quality of my life. I joke about it. There's a lot of cutesy medicine. So cutesy medicine is, and it's not important. It's like my mercury level or my coenzyme Q10 level. But the top things are, hypertension. Hypertension is a number one killer. So you want to get the basics down. You want to make sure that from a blood pressure standpoint, you're good. From a cholesterol standpoint, you're good. From a weight standpoint, things are optimized. What's your glucose like? Are you pre-diabetic? Do you have insulin resistance? I always tell my patients, let's get the basics right. That's like first grade, second grade, third grade. And then we'll get to 12th grade, the cutesy medicine a little bit later.
I mean, I understand what you're telling me, but Dan, we talk about prevention.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of traditional doctors now have become all longevity doctors.
Yeah.
I see this everywhere. But trying to reverse the diseases which are associated with aging, this is not longevity for me. This is geriatrics. Or am I wrong?
I think it's still longevity. You can never be too late to the game. I mean, there's obviously the earlier you start, the greater the impact. But I don't want someone who's in their 60s or 70s to think, okay, now I have hypertension and prediabetes, I can't impact longevity. You absolutely can. You can get your blood pressure controlled, get your blood glucose controlled, get on a good nutrition and exercise regime. And that's going to really impact the quality and quantity of life that you still have. So I don't want anyone to think that it's too late to make an impact.
So let's now move a little bit more into your work and your cardiology and all these things. So let me start. What are some early signs, warning signs that we can look to detect if we are developing cardiovascular disease?
The thing about cardiovascular disease is that it can be really sneaky. It's not like you feel a certain way. You can feel totally fine and have a massive heart attack the next day. That's true. You can even have a negative stress test and have a heart attack the next day, because a stress test is meant to detect more than 70% blockage. And sometimes the plaques that rupture are only 10 or 15%, and they're just high, fatty, what we call vulnerable plaque. And in the right time, the right position, the plaque ruptures, and then you have a massive heart attack. So the thing with cardiovascular disease is that it can be really, really, sneaky, undetectable. We look at markers like your blood pressure, cholesterol, and now we have advanced technology like coronary CT angiography with plaque analysis, coronary calcium scores that can actually measure and see what's going on. And I like to pair that with different blood biomarkers. Biomarkers are just signals in your blood that tell you whether there's room for improvement. We all know LDL, but now there's lipoprotein A, which we know is a bad player. There's ApoB, which is also a bad player. And we're able to look for these biomarkers and modify them. And when we do that, we can modify your risk.
Yeah. And we do know, obviously, that lifestyle does affect the risk 100%. Smoking, high blood pressure.
And I think most people
cholesterol,
know that. Yeah.
Bag of sleep. But I want to discuss something else with you. And I want to discuss with you what we call systemic chronic inflammation. Low grade, this kind of...
We call that inflammaging.
Inflammaging, yes. Yeah. Because I remember a study, I don't now recall, but I do remember that they tested so many people, and most of the people who died from heart disease and heart attacks were smokers or high blood pressure or whatever. But there was a quarter of these people that they died without any of these reasons. And they start suspecting that systemic chronic inflammation may be putting your heart under flame.
The interesting thing about inflammation is that it seems to be the cornerstone of just any disease. Remember the 3 diseases that we talked about, cancer, heart disease, and neurodegenerative? What's the cornerstone of all 3 of them is inflammation. So we know, for instance, with heart disease, inflammatory cholesterol. So if your inflammatory markers are high and you have high LDL, that's much worse than just having high LDL alone. So inflammation seems to be the cornerstone of so much disease manifestation, whether we talk about Alzheimer's or cancer or heart disease. So inflammation is really important. There's simple tests like C-reactive protein, CRP, which we use in clinical practice to get a sense of whether someone's inflammatory or not.
For the sake of our audience, you won't tell us what inflammation is, so that how our immune system attacks.
So we want a certain degree of inflammation. Your immune system is scavenging, it's protecting you from diseases, from infectious diseases. So without any inflammation, we'd have pneumonia, we'd have tuberculosis, we'd have all sorts of infectious diseases. The issue is that if there's overexpression of immune cells and there's an inflammatory response that's out of proportion, that's when the problem happens.
In everybody's mind is always cholesterol, for cardiovascular disease. What's the relationship between cholesterol and inflammation that we talk about? Is there a relationship between the two?
So for me, it's the relationship of if there's inflammation and you have inflammatory cholesterol, then it starts creating foam cells. And these foam cells is when the plaque starts depositing in the blood vessels, stiffening the blood vessels, narrowing the blood vessels. So it's like, having a fire in kerosene at the same time.
Yes.
It's like the perfect storm. So if you have high cholesterol and your body's inflammatory, it's going to start building that plaque a lot more effectively.
And what is the role of statins?
So statins are, for a lot of people, debatable. For me and most cardiologists, less debatable. Statins do a couple of things. One, they decrease cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Two, they have an anti-inflammatory property to it. So we already knocked off the two things that we talked about, bad cholesterol and inflammation. And then it has this quote unquote pleiotropic effect, very fancy word for stabilizing plaque and taking the bad plaque, which is, and by bad plaque, I mean plaque that's rich in cholesterol, it's not calcified, and transforming it into more stable plaque, which is less likely to rupture. So statins do a lot of things in the body that helps decrease overall cardiovascular risk.
You mentioned about atherosclerosis earlier.
Yeah.
Can this start at a very early age?
Atherosclerosis can start even as early as your 20s. I mean, there are people with familial hypercholesterolemia where it starts even earlier. So when we do MRIs of the aorta, we can see plaque deposition starting as early as 20s. So that's why we need to underscore the importance of lifestyle, good sleep, good exercise, not smoking, not vaping, and having a more Mediterranean style diet.
Yeah. So this is really somebody who is young, needs to start doing.
We're learning that the earlier you start, the bigger the advantage. It's no longer, okay, I'm over 50, now I need to start thinking about my health. And it's nothing to be scared about. It's just you have agency, even early on in life, to really make an impact on what it looks like later on.
Yeah. I want us to move into, and related to this, obviously, to insulin resistance.
Yes.
And, what are some early signs of this?
So first we should define insulin resistance.
Yeah.
So this is really, people who are not diabetic, but, their fasting blood sugar is above the normal range, or the marker that we use for diabetes places them in the diabetic range. And usually what happens is that the insulin that they produce does not regulate sugar the way that it should. Insulin directs sugar into the liver and muscles. And if you have insulin resistance, your insulin, that protein, is not able to do that. And some of the signs of that are food cravings, central abdominal, fat distribution. Those are some signs that you might have insulin resistance.
How important is genetics? I mean, talking about cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, how important is genetics? How important? Because lifestyle, because people give different ratios, say 30-70, some others say 10-90. So what is your opinion on this?
I mean, it's important to ask that question on a population basis, but I think of everyone as an N of one. Everyone's their own person. So their, genetic risk might be different than someone else's genetic risk. If you ask me overall, I'd say 3/4 of it is modifiable and 25% of it is genetic.
But even with being genetically predisposed, there's still a lot of things you can do in your everyday life.
There's a lot of things you can do in your everyday life.
Do you believe, I just want to broaden it up now, do you believe, we do need data, we need report cards, and we need statistics. Medical science by definition is predictive, is all about communicating group data to the individual. But in your job, how do you personalize?
I have the privilege of working at this place called Atria Research Institute, and we get all sorts of information from the patient. And the speech I give to my patient is they first come in and they share their goals and aspirations. So that's one column. I want to have more energy. I want to have better exercise tolerance. I want to be able to sleep better. Then 2, we collect data. We collect data in terms of pharmacogenomics, polygenic risk scores, genetic predispositions for Alzheimer's, et cetera, as well as different biomarkers, cholesterol, inflammation, iron, etc. The list goes on. And then the last column is what I want for the patient. I want them to be up to speed with their colonoscopy, up to speed with appropriate vaccines. And then we take these three things, the wishes, the data, and my wish for the patients, and create a plan for the patient. And that's how I look at medicine. So you try to triangulate, between family history, genetics, lifestyle, goals, and then importantly, the data. And now we're getting better at getting data. We can see epigenetics, we can see methylation markers, we can even look at circulating tumor DNA to look for cancer early in the blood. And we do all of this and create a plan for the patient.
Which is great.
That feels manageable.
But, coming from also wellness and well-being, life is to be experienced. So I often ask myself, and I put this question to you, should I be living life to avoid disease, or should I be living life to have successful living? Should I be be data-driven? Of course, we need, or should I be just data-informed and then optimize as I want things?
Like you as the patient?
Yeah.
I think, optimize is the way to do it. You can't do everything.
Isn't it also stressful optimizing? Because if you optimize for me, it's stressing me and creates an anxiety. And you say, well, you didn't reach this number, you will say to me maybe in the next consultation. And I think optimization should be in my hands kind of thing, because I live life to enjoy. I mean, I need joy in my life.
I think balance and harmony is important. There's certain basic things that are the low-hanging fruit that I think everyone should go for. If you're hypertension and pre-diabetic, we have to fix that. I know it might be stressful. Let's get through that. Those are things that we can fix. But it is about balance. You can't just, for instance, Brian Johnson, he's the guy who's trying to biohack himself into perfection. In my mind, he's not really living. He's just a giant, science experiment. If you're living in a world where you're tracking blood work and concerned about cancer and concerned about dementia, and it's all consuming, it sort of defeated the purpose. We want to make it manageable, really go after the most high impact things. And we have tools that can do that very easily for us, whether it's imaging or blood work, just even us talking about lifestyle and nutrition. We can learn a lot from each other and help each other.
Yeah, because you also said, everything can be modifiable at any age.
Exactly.
And
a little bit at a time. We don't, and the other thing is we don't need to fix everything all in one moment. Even if I discover 10 things about George, Dr. Gaitanos, that I think could improve, doesn't mean we need to fix it all right now. We might pick one or two right now, and then in 6 months later, once those are done, then we'll go to we'll unlock the key to the next phase, and we can take it easy. We also know stress and high cortisol are not good for us. So we have time to do these things.
Thank you. And we continue our conversation in the second episode.
Thank you for listening. For more, visit Chenot.com. The information in this podcast does not constitute medical advice. Always speak to your doctor or another qualified healthcare professional about your individual needs.